Right, joining me live now is the political analyst and best-selling author Brian Winter. He's the editor-in-chief of America's Quarterly and vice president of policy for the Americas Society and Council of the Americas. Brian, thank you so much for being with us. Just talk to us about what happens to Cuba if this continues, just in terms of the impact on the economy, infrastructure, food shortages, potential protests, social unrest. Your take on that?
Zain, I think we're in the end game now. Since the beginning of this year, when the Trump administration announced this blockade on fuel imports into Cuba, the plan was always to get to the Caribbean summer, to these hot, hot months of July and August, when even under good conditions, life in that part of the world can be unbearable. In the hopes, from the Trump administration's perspective, of generating some kind of political change. Here we are, and conditions on the island, according to accounts from your correspondent, from Patrick, and from others, has become exceptionally difficult, not just because of the inconvenience of not having electricity, but the effect that it has on things like surgeries in hospitals and the amount of food that is available for Cubans to eat. The question now is whether that will, or whether it even can, result in some kind of political change. You do get the sense that that's what many Cubans want. But look, the Cubans are absolute experts in keeping the population of the island under their thumb. They've been doing it for 67 years. And I think for many of us, we're waiting to see some kind of change, but it's not clear that it will happen.
Well, Cuba has announced these sort of sweeping economic reforms, potential reforms. I mean, right now, obviously, we're talking about a centralized economy. The island and the government in Cuba, they decide what is produced, how it's produced, who produces it, what prices it's sold for. And these changes are, I assume, to obviously placate the Trump administration. Just talk to us about some of these announced changes and what they could mean for this island economically.
The thing about capitalist reforms is that they don't depend exclusively on the government. It is relevant that the Cuban government has announced these changes, which would allow, for example, investment by the descendants of Cuban expats in places like Florida and the private sector in Cuba for the first time. But you have to ask yourself, who would be willing to invest in these conditions? Especially if you bet, as some people do at least, that the Cuban regime is, that they're short timers, that they're not going to be around for much longer. So, the way you asked the question, Zain, this seems more like a political gesture on the part of the Cuban government. No one really senses that it's going to be enough to placate the Trump administration and Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who, of course, has been dedicated to the prospect of political change in Cuba for much of his career, coming from politics in South Florida, where this has been an issue for so long. So, no, I mean, the feeling that I hear from people in the private sector here in the United States is that this is just these measures really just show a Cuban government that's grasping at straws, trying to do dramatic things in the hope that it can survive. But very few people expect any significant money to come into the country as a result.
Brian, what do you make of the ethics, just the ethics of the way that the US government is going about trying to sort of force Cuba to implement some of these changes, just in terms of inflicting, let's be honest, this sort of suffering on ordinary Cuban people? I mean, everything from, you talk about the summer and blackouts, just the oppressive heat that people are experiencing right now, the food in your fridge obviously spoils. I mean, these are really difficult conditions. People are experiencing real hardship in and around Havana. Your take on the ethics of this method, this way to force Cuba to make change?
That's a very fair question. I mean, I think on the one hand, it's clear that the Cuban government deserves a lot of the blame for the economic policies that have put Cuba in this state. But there's no doubt, as you say, that the measures taken by the Trump administration so far this year have resulted in suffering on the island, and probably, according to reporting that has come out of Cuba, some loss of life as well. People in Washington tell you that this is, you know, the cost that is necessary for there to be a change in, a repressive dictatorship, and the possibility for Cubans to have a better life, whether it's worth it or not. That is because of the human cost that you point out is a real question. I would note, my perception, at least as an American who follows Latin America here in the United States, is that this, U.S. role in the suffering on the island has not gotten a lot of political attention here in the United States. You don't really hear people talking about it. You don't see that much coverage of the suffering aspect of it on the news, except for on CNN, one of the few outlets that is still allowed to have reporters there on the ground. Patrick does a great job. But apart from that, it's not really present in the debate here. It's not particularly present in the debate around the rest of Latin America either, where we have seen many left-wing governments lose elections over the last year and a half. These were traditional allies of Havana, who've now been replaced by conservative leaders who are also quite eager to see change potentially and supportive of what the Trump administration is doing there. So all of this has kind of produced this alignment where, maybe there's a possibility for change. You do sense that some shift is coming, but how deep it will be, whether it will be regime change or some sort of deal like the US government made with Nicolas Maduro's successors in Caracas, none of us know the answer to that question.
Yeah, and you bring up an important point. Change is coming, but at what cost for the Cuban people, whether it's in terms of the oppressive heat, whether it's in terms of transportation difficulties, the humanitarian aspect of all of this, the hospitals facing shortages, your food in your fridge going to waste. I mean, it's awful what people are going through right now. And you point out that the US does indeed, maybe they're not to blame entirely, but they do indeed have a role to play in the current level of sufferings for the Cuban people right now. Brian Winter, thank you so much.